All right. Thank you for joining us today. I call the May 11th, 2022 meeting of the Police Advisory and Oversight Board to order. Let's begin with introduction of board members, and we'll start to my left.
Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Conrad Thomas, and the reason I answered the call to be on the advisory committee is to listen and to discuss issues that are important and bring what I heard from that will be discussed in this committee and to bring it into our diverse community. And there I will be listening to what they have to say and bring that back into this committee so that we can discuss any issues or grievances that are open, and so that we can bridge that somewhat fractured bridge between policing and the communities by which they serve.
Lucretia King, Vice Chair.
All right. Joanna Johnson, Chair.
Todd Spellberg.
Dave Hoganson.
And Tanya Graywind.
All right. Next item is to approve the agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
I motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second it.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay. Opposed, same sign? Okay, motion is carried. The next item is to approve the minutes of the April 14th, 2022 meeting. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
A motion to approve.
A second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, opposed, sign. Motion carried. Well, the next item is public comment. Those who wish to address the Police Advisory and Oversight Board must use the sign-in sheet. Speakers must state their name and will be limited to 2 minutes. Comments should not contain any profanity or personal attacks, please. And staff, do we have anyone signed up for public comment? No. Okay. The next item on the agenda is department updates. Let's begin with Chief Zabolski, who will speak on academy updates, and then this will be followed by Sergeant Jacobson, who will speak on the calendar review of events.
Good evening, Board. Let me get situated here. Okay, so starting Monday, we have 27 brand-new police recruits starting the academy. It's a pretty diverse group. 10 out of 27 are female and/or from diverse backgrounds, which is 37% of the total. A little bit more of a breakdown. We've got 6 female academy students and then 7 with diverse backgrounds. 3 are both female and come from a diverse background. So I think a pretty good representation in terms of not only good candidates, but in diversifying our academy class. So we're looking forward to getting them started on Monday, and they will graduate August 5th. The only other update, any questions on the academy? Okay. The only other update, I just wanted a couple things to send your way is we did complete, we will have of this evening some additional training on Minnesota deadly force statutory changes. That was an issue that caused our department and others on the North Dakota side to have to cease mutual aid assistance because there were some constitutional issues with the Minnesota law. That's been addressed, and now we have collectively, all the agencies on our side of the river are completing some training relative to their statute. That will open up that mutual aid opportunity again, which I think everyone is looking forward to getting back to that partnership. So within the next couple of weeks, that should be completed with the rest of the agencies finishing up, and we'll be back to that posture. And then next week, we do have a large positive officer wellness announcement that will be going out to our department, although I can't actually tell you about it right now, except to say it does have to do with mental health in our department, one of our core values, officer wellness, and the work of our wellness committee. So that'll pop out next week during Law Enforcement Week as well, and then we can touch base on that in the future. But we're all very pleased with the work of that team so far and what it's going to bring to the department from that perspective. And then absent any questions, I'll turn it over to Sergeant Jacobson to go over some calendar events you might be interested in.
I have a question, Chief
Yes, sir.
Zabowski, in terms of getting that message out in terms of the diversity that the Fargo Police Department has achieved. Is there any plans on getting that out to the community so that they would know how aggressive we've been towards trying to address some of the lack of diversity?
Yeah, no, good question. Our city communications team is kind of all over that. They're already preparing to, they'll have video rolls and they'll be doing interviews of the recruits at the beginning and throughout the course. So we'll be able to regularly push out to the public through website and those kind of communications, the makeup of the class, what they're kind of going through, get to meet some of those people in a sense as they go through that process. So that will be very widely broadcast as they work their way through the academy. Anything else? Okay, I'll turn it over to Christie.
Good evening. In front of you is an updated calendar event for various engagement efforts. Should be in front of each of your chairs. And so we did successfully host our first community outreach event, a Night of Hope, where we spotlighted Nathan Harmon. I know that we also had the event at 2 of our schools, and so that was extremely successful. We want to spotlight next week, well, not next week, sorry, Friday, is Law Enforcement Memorial Day, and we will be collaboratively working with our other regional law enforcement agencies to host a celebration at Lindenwood Park. It is open to the public, and you are welcome to attend. It would start at noon. It lasts approximately 30 to 45 minutes or so. So of course, you're welcome to attend. All I do ask is obviously if you do plan to attend, if you'd send me a quick email. And then we put out a variety of different events that we host, and we also have educational engagement booths at. And so most of them are typically open to the public. We'll have an educational booth at Midwest Kid Fest and at Juneteenth. We host our own Fargo Police Picnic, and that is something that we can have dialogue with you on whether or not you would like your own educational engagement table. Similarly, that we have with the Human Relations Commission and Native American Commission, they have their own engagement tables. Otherwise, it might be a little overwhelming your first year and you might want to just walk around, and we can readdress it in future years. You can kind of mull that over and we can discuss it again at next month's meeting. But that is June 29th. And like I said, we do a lot of engagement efforts where we have educational booths, and they're all listed on that paperwork in front of you if you don't have any other questions.
Any questions? Are there any advisory board members, are there any other questions on items in the department updates?
No questions, but some thoughts though, on the importance of boots on the ground, visibility, and our presence.
Right. So, are you trying to suggest that maybe we try to be present at this picnic, so make a presence that way?
I'm suggesting that, we speak to them
Okay.
and make it, I can't, my opinion may be different than the community's opinion, but again, I just see the merits of basically being able to show our presence at one of these events and, just showing our participation.
I really agree. I think right now we're at our second meeting, and some of us are wondering where this takes us and what comes next. And I think having a table at the picnic, that's why we're there. We're a liaison, and so I think we'd get ideas from the community and maybe things that we can follow up with on their behalf.
Yeah, I like that idea.
So for perspective, if you've never attended our police picnic. It is an extremely well-attended event. We typically have anywhere from 5,000 to 8,000 community members that walk through. There's anywhere from, I don't know, I think on average, we have about 60 different community tables. We have bouncy houses and caricatures and a lot of law enforcement displays. And so it's just a really positive way for us to engage and work with and educate the community about all the varying entities that we have, not only in the police department, but also throughout the city and in the community. And so there's just a lot of educational booths and tables. So we can discuss that further and of course, email me at any time.
Okay. Anything else?
I have just one thing, Sergeant Jacobson, if we have a suggestion for an event, is it appropriate? Can we just email you, or do you want us to bring it up here?
No, I think, of course, if you have a suggestion to an event, we can have dialogue, and then depending on what you're suggesting and the amount of work and whether it comes to fruition, then we will, of course, bring it back to
Gotcha.
the whole group to invite and those kinds of things. But yes, absolutely, that is the type of education and information. We would like you to come and attend the things that we have historically already done to get a perspective about what we do and what that's like. But we are, of course, looking to expand. If we're missing communities or locations that you have contacts with and would recommend that being extremely helpful for us, we would love those ideas and options.
Perfect, yeah, so I'm a member of the parent committee for the Indian education for Fargo and West Fargo, and they're having their graduation picnic coming up here pretty soon, and they're planning to have some representation from, local universities, and they're gonna have little booths, and so I just thought maybe that would be an opportunity to.
Oftentimes, typically, we wouldn't have like a booth, but myself and Officer Kemp, who is our Native American
Perfect.
liaison officer, would do our best to attend those events. So yes, and we do a lot with our cultural community as well. We attend trainings, we engage with our cultural community and religious leaders on a regular basis. But that's part of our normal day-to-day work. If you ever have more questions, we can put on a future agenda item, all of the varying efforts that we do as a community engagement team and the subsets of that team. And then but we always love those invites.
Sergeant Jacobson, am I under the understanding that of the 8,000 attendees, roughly, that there's some demographics in terms of the ethnicity, the diversity of those groups of people that's coming to those particular events, and
For the Fargo Police Picnic,
Yes.
I think we just generalize the number, because it's highly advertised for all city of Fargo, and quite frankly, individuals from West Fargo and the region attend. I don't think we break down the attendance by demographics.
All right. If no further questions, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is a presentation. This is on the police department body-worn camera and is presented by Lieutenant Shane Aberley.
So I don't have one for everybody, but you'll have to share. So these are all the cameras that the officers use. We went to these in September, right, Chief? October of last year? So I have a PowerPoint that is similar, or basically what we did training for as the officers. You'll see, I don't know if you'll see it on there, but it says it's like 120 some slides. We're not gonna go through that much. I won't bore you that much. But we'll just kind of go over a little bit of it, and then we'll do some things. You can, obviously, you probably can't break it. I imagine if you drove over it or something, you could, but you could throw it around the room. It would probably be okay. So this is the Axon Body 3 camera, which is the latest and greatest body camera that Axon makes. They had just finished producing this one and pushing this one out when we went to it. So we're certainly not the first agency to have it, but we're one of the first, especially around here, to have Axon's newest equipment. This isn't necessarily, this is what the camera enables or helps us to be able to do. Some of the applications that we use on our phone, so we can recover the evidence, look at different things, we can assign it, unassign it to people, play the videos back, and those types of things. So here's kind of an overview of the camera. 12+ hour battery life, 30 frames per second, which is pretty standard. That's a lot of cameras do use that. The 146 diagonal field of view camera, that's pretty close to what the human eye sees. Of course, I'm certainly not, a doctor, but the reason that we like that and the rating and all of those different things with that camera is that we don't want the camera to see something or to portray something that the officer would not have physically been able to see at the time. For example, some cameras have the capability to show night vision. Obviously, as human beings, we don't have night vision. So we have that camera, we're seeing what we would normally see, and then somebody watches that video afterward and says, well, through the night vision, I could clearly see that there was nobody inside that car, or there were 4 people over there. We wouldn't be able to see that. So we want the camera to be the closest representation to what the human eye sees. Which is another one of the reasons that we went with Axon, is theirs is the best for this. They have an embedded GPS, which is a safety issue. It's excellent for us, so if an officer could be out somewhere, we can't get a hold of them on the radio or something like that. If they have their body camera, whether it's in one of 2 different modes, it emits a signal similar to your cell phone, so we could find them if need be, if they're not answering the radio. Obviously, that helps us as far as with citizens and things too. If an officer can't get on his radio because he's rendering aid, eventually they could send an ambulance or something right to where that officer is using the GPS. And then some of the other things on there are just the LTE. That's kind of the cell signal again. The display, we have the ability to watch multi-cameras at one time if we want. And then the Axon Respond, I'll touch on that here in a bit. So this is just, as you can see, you can certainly manipulate the cameras all you want. Anytime you turn it on, that is recorded, or anytime you activate or create an event. So the only way that we as a user can delete that event is if it's a false signal. So if something happens that automatically triggers your camera, which I will get into, you can, as the user, you have a couple seconds to look at it, hit a certain button, and then it will delete it. If you don't get to it within about 2 or 3 seconds, it stays as a recording. Once we upload it, or once it's on that camera, we cannot delete it. So on our back-end software, anytime you open up this camera, you do an audit of it, taser, any of that stuff, everything is documented, which is great for us for chain of custody. We don't have, and for transparency, so we don't have allegations of we manipulated the video or something like that. We can't do that. We can't delete videos without Axon doing it for us or having multi-steps within our agency to be able to authorize that. So again, feel free to, it might buzz, it might beep, it's fine. Like I said, you're probably not gonna break it. If you record yourself, that's fine. I will, it'll be listed as no event, but you'll be forever in Fargo PD's Axon evidence. Oh. All right, so when I talk about an event, that's that large button on the front. Some of you, or if not all of you, have seen some of our body camera footage, and basically that's our main button. When an officer gets out, they will hit that button twice, and that starts an event or a recording. Those light up based on different colors that are on there is what the camera is doing, whether it's recording in standby mode, any of the sleep mode, different things. You can see the camera lens is on the top. Looks similar to like one that's on your cell phone. There are various speakers and microphones, as we'll go over here, so it's to capture audio from all the way around. 4 microphones, I couldn't remember, okay. And then if we want to, and that's how we charge and dock them, right there, like any cell phone or any type of portable electronic device. This is more for the user, but we have different lights that signify different things on the top. That's battery with that camera that looks like that, that tells the user that it's actively recording right now. That's the display. That's our different buttons on the side. And then a select button. And then a mount on the back. Can I see? I'll bring it over there here, but typically what we have is a magnet. So there's an internal piece and then there's a magnet and then that locks in sideways and then comes up. This is what most of our officers are wearing. And as you can see, so it'll go through and sticks like that. And then the camera would mount on and turn that way. That's what most of us are using. Thank you. And the heat sink, that's just so it doesn't get too hot. At least that's what I'm told. All right, so the buffering mode. We have this in our squad car cameras as well. We had it in our old squad car cameras. So what this is that camera is continually recording. Once I start an event with that, so I hit the double click, it will go back 30 seconds prior to that and catch audio. Who had the camera that just beeped? Okay, so that means it's been going for 2 minutes. So that event button, just go ahead and hold that down until it beeps for me. There you go. So what that is you signified the ending of an event.
Okay.
So when you started the event, like I said, this buffering mode, this will go back 30 seconds prior to. So the nice thing about that is if an officer gets out of their car, takes off after somebody is something in a hurry, and all of a sudden, oh, things slow down, I forgot to turn my camera on, we'll go back, it goes back 30 seconds. There's no audio for that 30 seconds, but there is video. And our squad car cameras are the same way. So a very good feature. Okay, so again, to start a recording, you hit that event button. So you hit it twice. If you want to do that right now, you certainly can. And then to end it, you just hold that event button for about 3 seconds. And then as you see, or as you hear, you get that loud beep. We have the ability to mute. And some people, when they hear this, think, well, why would you want to mute it? Well, we have some privacy concerns. If we're in a hospital, medical things like that, we still want to keep the video going if possible, so we're not videoing medical records or anything. But if a doctor and another health professional are discussing someone's treatment plan, mental health, anything, we maybe need to hear it, but that doesn't need to be put in for evidence, so therefore we can mute it. So we'll still have video. If we're making a tactical or having a tactical discussion or something, we can mute it, but we'll still leave the video going. So that's an option for that, or as to why we have that. This is a nice feature we have. So if something of significance when you're in the video or as you're dealing with someone, something happens, you can click on the side and put a marker on it. So when you go back and watch it, it'll show different markers so you can fast forward to where that thing was so you can see what that event would be. It makes it easier, especially for our detectives, if they're reviewing an hour or two of video, different things that may have happened when evidence was discovered, things like that. Makes it easier for them. Volume up, volume down, pretty self-explanatory. We do have a stealth mode. Axon and our training team recommend that we do not use the stealth mode. The stealth mode turns off, like you heard it there, beep. That was because it had been going for 2 minutes. It turns all of that off, turns off all the lights. The problem with that is I'm not getting reminded of that, and I leave the scene, and now I take a personal break somewhere, and I have a camera going. So don't recommend that we have it in stealth mode. You certainly can, but it's not recommended. Most of the officers that I've seen do not have it in stealth mode. Again, the lights off and on. That's just a parrot. That's not really that important. And this is one of the greatest features that Axon, another one of the reasons that we went with them, is they have signals. So that camera, and I'll show you here in a bit, but it'll do the same thing, which is kind of the next 3 slides. But if I draw my taser, or if I draw and arm my taser, that sends a signal to any body, or sends a signal out, any body camera within, I believe it's 200 feet, depending on line of sight, structures, all that, that will automatically activate that body camera. So it's an excellent feature for an officer that's responding to something and is in a hurry to come running out and doesn't have to take the time to think about it, because if that signal goes, it'll automatically kick their body camera on. So arming a taser will do that. We have signal sidearm. Anytime we draw a sidearm out of our holster, if the camera is in ready mode, it'll automatically activate the body camera. Rifle rack in our squad car, and also the lights in our squad car will start them as well. So if you have the camera in front of you, please look at the top and see if it says ready on the top. All 3 of them do?
Yeah.
Mine does, yes, correct. What about you, Conrad?
Yeah.
Okay, over here.
Ours has a moon on it.
Has a moon. Okay, so what I need you to do is the event button, just hold that down. Actually, you know what? Now that I'm, go ahead and hit it twice. There we go. Now hold it down. And then it should just till a little beeps again. It should say ready. Now it says ready?
Yes.
Okay. So again, prove that that taser works. So mine's not armed.
Cool.
So that automatically kicks that one on. All right, so again, sidearm will do the same thing. I'm not going to prove that to you, but the taser certainly will. So that's one of the greatest features. I know that's one that the chief, when we went to these, was wanted to make sure that we had. It's an excellent feature.
And what's the range of that?
I believe it's 200 feet, but again, that varies, line of sight, those types of things. I believe the signal's for 3 seconds or something, 3 or 4, and then it goes down. And then so if I come after that signal, mine won't automatically activate. I have to be there when that signal is sent. But every time it gets armed or somebody else does it, it sends out another signal, if that makes sense.
So if there's 3 officers within 200 feet and you draw a taser fire, they're all on, whether there's 2 officers there or 10, they're all gonna go on.
Correct. Unless they have it in sleep mode, which if they're outside of the station, they should not have it in sleep mode. We have it in sleep mode because if somebody does something in the station, turns their lights on in their car, again, we don't want somebody in the restroom and their camera being activated. So that's the purpose of the sleep mode. But if you come in our building, I don't know if you remembered, there were signs as you walk in, it says, put your body camera in sleep mode, and then as you walk out, it says, make sure you turn them on. That's what that's for.
Okay.
So. All right, so I talked about that false signal. So if that does happen to you and you're in there, you can hit it, the cancel real quick, but you got a short amount of time or else that's a permanent record on there. Covered all these. This is also an excellent feature that we've already used. So this Axon Respond, we have the ability, you can set your phone up, especially as a supervisor, that anytime a signal goes off, like I just did with the taser, that you get notified. So then you can pull that up, it comes up on a map, shows you where it is, and if you so choose, you can live stream the officer's body-worn camera. So technically, if we had one of those started and the supervisor saw that event, they could log on to it and could watch our meeting. And it's real time. We've tested it. It's amazing, even across town. So it's very good. I know when we had the homicide over on 27th Street, we had supervisors that were live streaming different officers that were in there as they were going through clearing the building. It's an amazing feature. Yes?
Are your officers notified
Yes.
when you live stream through their camera?
They are a situation like that, we're not probably going to take the time, obviously, to let them know. It does blink a different color. It blinks purple. So if you look down and see it, but nothing else happens that tells you. But it's been our practice that if you're going to live stream someone if you can, you let them know prior to or after saying, hey, I live streamed it. Any other questions about that?
No, I did have a question. What was the rule or was there a requirement, when you're answering a call to have a body camera on?
Yes. Anytime, basically, the way we've kind of defined it is anything you would notify dispatch or the communication center about, traffic stop, you're going to stop out and talk with someone, you get sent to a type of call, your camera is activated. So
Well,
the expectation is that every single call that we go on will have body worn camera footage short of a malfunction or a potential mistake by an officer.
and I guess like learning to not forget.
Right.
Right?
Mhm.
Okay.
If I could just add one piece, if you're interested in our policy, that's on our website as well. So policy 424 is our mobile audio video policy. And so all those things that the Lieutenant was talking about would be in there, those parameters.
Yes.
I would say when I went on the ride-alongs, your officers are well-trained because anytime anything was going on, it was just quick. So it's ingrained in the people I was with.
I believe so. And this isn't necessarily just about body cameras, but in the less than the year that we've had them, as far as my position, being in, professional accountability, it's life-changing. It's been amazing. We've had numerous uses of force where they were people that were allegations, and you can clearly see none of that happened. Complaints, same thing. We could show on the body camera what you're saying did not happen. It's great. I haven't met an officer that's like, oh, I can't believe we got these things we're getting checked up on. Most of them are very supportive of it, thankful of it, and we all are. It's been amazing. That's pretty much it for the PowerPoint. The rest of it's pairing and kind of boring stuff like that. Any other questions about the body-worn camera, the policy, or anything like that?
So these have just a single camera in them, right?
Yes,
Like, so my iPhone's got, I think, 3 cameras.
probably.
And the technology is downgraded to that's similar to the human eye.
Correct.
Is there another mode that captures a higher resolution? Is there usefulness? I get it that you want to be able to see what the officer's seeing, but are there other cameras that show more detail, and would that detail ever be useful?
That camera has the ability to actually, I believe, 1080p, but we do the 720, again, because of the human eye. So it does have the ability to do that. Certainly, I would imagine there are times that more detail would be good. But again, we want to be careful about, our brains don't, we don't record like a camera does. The camera just records information. We observe and orientate and do those different things. So trying to get as close to that. But there's certainly technologies that can always be more helpful, I think, in certain situations.
Does this record at 720 and 1080p both, so you can view it either way?
That's a good question. I believe you have to set it to do one or the other, but I'm not 100% for sure on that.
Okay. Thank you.
You mentioned malfunction. How often do you calibrate the cameras? And if there is a malfunction out in the field, what do the officers do?
I guess we don't necessarily calibrate them, so to speak, but every day, night, morning, whatever, after our officers get off shift, they dock them. So they put them in things so they can charge. And that's where the data gets downloaded if they haven't already done it on their phone. So if Axon has an update or anything like that, it'll get pushed through that way. If the officer grabs their camera, and I believe I can't remember the color, but there's a certain color that if that on that event button shows that color, that means that the camera is malfunctioning. So we do have backup cameras that the officers can use, and we can assign it to them. But part of our policy is that once you discover that a camera is not working properly, you are to, as soon as you can, replace it to get a working camera.
I can see where that could be an issue, especially if an officer's out in the field and that camera inadvertently fails, then if this is a scheme where basically there's, again, transparency, then there's that transparency is lost.
And I can understand that, but if we have an officer that repeatedly has a camera malfunction, I will guarantee you that will take a deeper look than all of a sudden, oh, this guy, I guess it broke again. I could assure you that will happen. Like I said, with the audit trail that we can do, if all of a sudden we look and say, Aberley for the last 5 calls doesn't have any body camera, we can do that from the computer and look, and then that's when we say, why aren't you having this body camera? And now we're going to take a deeper look into why that goes on. That's the great thing about their back-end software, is that everything you do, every time you turn that camera on, every time you put it in sleep mode, every time you turn it off, every time you dock it, all of that is tracked. And we can't change that. Only Axon can change that, or can edit it, I guess, if you want to use that word. So nothing's 100% certainly, but there are some fail-safes built in.
Okay, I have a question.
Yes.
I believe you said it has a 12-hour life cycle.
The battery life, yes.
Now, what happens if the officers are involved in some kind of extended event that goes past that time frame? What is the recourse then? Is there some kind of backup power source or something?
We have the ability to charge them from our cameras inside, from our computers in our car. So we do have the cords and the ability to do that. However, if an officer is stuck out somewhere for longer than that, then there is a chance that, yes, we could go outside of that battery life. But we have backup cameras, we have the oncoming shift, we have cameras that are still there from other shifts that aren't there, that supervisors or somebody could run them out to use them.
How long is the data held on to? How long or do you keep it for before you dispose?
That depends on how we classify it. So if it's based on the level of offense, based on if it's something that comes to my office, if it's a citizen complaint, we have different storage times for different events. So I believe our felony is 10 years after adjudication. So if it's something that takes us 3 or 4 years to solve, another 2 years by the court process, we could potentially maintain that for 15 plus years. And we can keep some things permanently if we want to. That's a setting that we can do. Any other questions?
No other questions? Okay. Well, the next item on the agenda, thank you, Lieutenant Haverly. I was writing questions as you were going along and you answered them all, so.
Well, that's good.
I appreciate that. It was very informative. So the next item on the agenda is discussion items, and on that is the mission statement.
Good evening. So at last month's meeting, we discussed the desire for the board to come up with a mission, and then at the same time, there was some requests for clarification and guidance on purpose and duties. And so we're just gonna kind of give it a quick overview of what is in the city ordinance, and then also to partner with refreshing your memory on what the Fargo Police Department's vision, mission, and values are. So in front of you is the vision, mission, and value that we hold within the Fargo Police Department. And then if you look into your binder on page 2 of ordinance, it will show you the listed purpose that was designed and placed into ordinance for your board. And so here we talk about the purpose of the advisory board is the data evaluation, technology impacts, review of completed personnel investigations, police response to mental health, which many of you have already discussed and brought up, and wanting to know more information about and will be on future agenda items, community training, educational topics, and such. So that is clearly defined what your purpose is in ordinance. And so that's why we chose not to spend too much time with that. But if you have questions, then we talked about the specific duties that are also defined for you directly in the ordinance, and that's going to be on page 3. Well, at the very bottom of page 2 into page 3. So these are the specific duties that was created for your role as board members. So, of course, we talked about how you'll be invited to the community outreach opportunities, of which you have the calendar of events for. We are always looking for guidance and advice on community concerns and community events and partnerships that you might already be a part of and that you think it would be important for us to be actively engaged in educating with. And then, of course, always giving you the opportunity to review existing department policies, procedures, especially when it comes up to these topics. We can make sure that we are always listing for you the policy that parallels the presentation, like we did today with the body-worn cameras, so you can explore in more detail what officers are taught and to what standard we are held. And then you will see future presentations about the formal professional standard division investigations. And so that's automatically determined as part of the duties for you. And so after that, we will move on to what is the mission statement? Chief Cebulski sent you in a previous email kind of how do you even determine or make up a mission statement, and it often comes to the mission or the purpose, and this is just an example of typical criteria that you want to meet when developing it. Needs to be specific and distinctive, but also not a book, so brevity is important as well. And then is it something that you're capable of achieving, and it reflects what you're capable of doing within your time constraints and energy sources and those kinds of things. So with that, we came up with kind of an example mission statement here, and this is kind of like a template example that would also parallel the mission of the Fargo Police Department, because we don't want to go completely off rails, because you are, a subset of the Fargo Police Department, and so we didn't want to come up with something totally different. And so we came up with this as an example, and it parallels very closely several of the examples that all of you sent as options, and that is found on the last page here. So several of you sent your thoughts and how that would like, so I'll give you a minute to kind of review each other's statements on what you were kind of thinking, and then we can also reflect back to kind of the example template as well, and then we can have discussion on exact word choice, word order, those kinds of things. So as you can see, you're all along the same lines. It's just a little bit different word choice and those kinds of things. A strong emphasis on, the engagement, the education, the understanding, the empowerment, and really that community relation piece, which is what we have all talked about from the beginning on the instrumental role that you will play in being intermediaries for us, through you to your community and vice versa, so that your communities that you collaborate and are a part of will share things with you, and then you can bring them back to us, and we can, of course, either address it or provide education and resources or understanding. And so all of that is ultimately encompassed in your recommendations as well. So back up to the previous slide, this was kind of what we thought encompassed all of your statements as well. So I'm looking for a little guidance on how you want to move forward, coming to a final conclusion on what you want to take ownership for in a mission statement for your board. Are you comfortable with this? You would like to play around with word choice? What are we thinking?
Well, I have a comment on, I don't look at it as our mission to improve
Okay,
community relationships. I think the improvement of those relationships could be an outcome that could happen, but I don't know as if that's our goal, or if that's our mission.
okay. What are you thinking? What word would you like there instead?
You know, I go back to, you know, I like the word liaison.
Okay,
Between the community and law enforcement. Where there's, you know, back and forth between us, the community, us and you, and so, I don't know, I just, it's okay, I'm not, but just a thought.
So maybe what I'm hearing from David is, you know, in terms of liaisons, exchanging ideas and information, and maybe even providing input. That's to me what a liaison may do.
so ultimately, so far, we want to change the word from improve to liaison. Is that,
Or maybe to exchange. I mean, to me, it is basically going into the community to exchange ideas and to about information about the police services and things which is important that they need to know, that the community needs to know.
true, and that's
About-
covered in the end of the sentence too, with
Yes.
that we're providing insight and transparency. Do you think that encompasses that or not truly? Is that what you're saying, Mr. Thomas?
I think so, but like I say, maybe the improved part of it, I do agree with David that maybe something needs to change there and be a little bit more encompassing.
So you can take a moment and think on that. So ultimately, we can come back to the word improve, moving on to the next portion of we're all comfortable with the recognizing the police-community relationship and then collaborative public forums and approaching through insight and transparency and that educational piece. So we're good with that, sir, yes?
Maybe make sure that I understand the objectives here. When I put together a mission statement for an organization that I was involved in, it took maybe a year to really hone down and truly describe truly what that mission of that organization would be. So I don't know if there's a rush here in terms of trying to get something done tonight. This is the
Yeah.
first, maybe.
I think my recommendation, we can always, at our 1 year anniversary kind of thing, we can always come back and potentially improve and or edit. You don't have to have a mission statement. That is also an option because your role and purpose are clearly defined in ordinance. So that's also an option, and we can table this for a year from now if you don't feel that it's imminently important to have a mission. It had come up in the training, and we,
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that in terms of us trying to make a decision on wording and how to present this may take some time to do it.
we,
So
okay, and that's all right.
that's my opinion. Again, I'm just
Right, so
I'm
you,
just being somewhat observant here. So
right.
Any other opinion or comment or question? Because it's not
Yeah,
an obligation or a requirement, would take the time as well. So,
because I think it's important.
Sure.
I mean, this defines, for us as well as a future advisory committee, what this committee is all about.
right. Which, again, this is the second meeting that we've had, so it is a little bit about, what is the role gonna look like over time, and like you said, everything's in the ordinance of the role of this, but what's the mission of the group, I guess? So are you motioning to table the mission statement?
I motion that we table it till we have some time to take a look at this and to maybe provide some further information.
Okay.
Would you like to have maybe access to the statements that everybody else had sort of generated and then this so that we can?
Sure.
Yes, yes,
this 5 slides I will email out to the rest
yes.
to all of you.
That's a
and-
good
I think
suggestion.
that'd be useful, yeah.
Yes.
I'll
So there's-
second his motion.
Yeah, right. Okay. All right, so any other discussion about it? We're feeling, right? All right, so the motion is made to table the mission statement at this time. And all in favor, say aye.
I-
Okay. Those opposed, same sign? Okay. So I guess the motion will be carried to have the mission statement.
I will email
Table.
you all the presentation from tonight, and then we can have further dialogue on whether we want to feel comfortable in 6 months or 12 months after you've been in the role for a little while, and also attended a lot of the events and fulfilled a lot of those purposes. So we can reevaluate in 6 or 12 months.
All right.
Perfect.
Any future agenda requests?
Yeah, I do. On my mind this evening is the tragedy in Duluth, Minnesota. The gentleman with the mental health emergency, and he killed his family and then himself. And I know everybody here it really struck close to home. And I know that's mental health and how we help people with addictions is really front in my mind. And I guess I'm curious to know how we look at that, what happens in Duluth, what the response was like. Are there learnings that can be taken from that to avoid a horrible situation like that happening in our community? So I'd like to, I guess, look at that at a future meeting.
Okay, and we can talk more at agenda planning as well. I think what you're referring to is maybe how we would approach, and I don't think that we know, and probably won't for some time know the details of that particular incident for us to actually do an analysis, but we could present to you how we handle certain mental health calls, how we would approach situations. Now, this wasn't the barricaded person incident. This was something that evolved, and by the time the police were there,
It was
unfortunately, everybody was deceased, right?
Yep.
And we don't know what led up to, what led up to it and what information may have or may not have been known. But we could certainly provide a presentation on how, in general, we respond to those calls and how we would address those, our partnerships with our mental health collaborators that we have now, and also probably speak about some of the partnerships that we're trying to evolve in that area. If that
I'd
would
like
get to the
see-
gist of your question.
Yeah, I think that'd be useful for me.
Okay.
Okay.
And what about the case we spoke of about in the school where the parent, that would be a good demonstration, where the parent went to where the parent went to the school, I don't know much details about it, but the school called for backup and somehow the father was shot. It wasn't in Fargo, but it was in another part of North Dakota. That might be a good demonstration on how our guys here respond to a school incident with maybe aggressive parent, I don't know.
Sure. Yeah, that happened, I think, in western North Dakota, is what you're talking about, right? Yeah, and we could, again, provide a overview of our school resource officer program and what safety measures and protocols are in place to address situations like that. I don't know that that school had an SRO, I'm not certain, but
Yeah, I
again,
don't know.
but just to keep it essentially here in terms of what we would do and how we would handle that, we could provide kind of an overview on that program and the things that are in place for situations like that.
Okay.
Yeah. And like you said, you couldn't speak to it now, but sometime in the future, maybe not next meeting, I'd like to hear more about the officer wellness that you were talking about earlier, Chief Sapolsky.
Yeah, we'll do, actually, there's a very cool video, and we will definitely be in a position to play that, and that'll probably be out publicly as well, but just go over some of the components of that program. So we're making a lot of strides there.
Yeah, great. Is there any other business?
Well, this is just something I noticed this week, and maybe it's just that the weather's gotten nicer, but I noticed there were a couple of officers walking together down on Broadway. And I was just curious if that walking the beat, so to speak, is more prevalent now that the weather's nicer. It was nice to see the guys. They were engaging the people on the street. They're walking down by on the north end by the Bismarck and those areas where that can be troublesome sometimes, but it was good to see the guys, and they were interacting really well with the public, and I just wondered if that was going to be something we'll be seeing more of this summer.
Yes, you will. Our cops in general and our downtown resource officers specifically do a really excellent job of community engagement. Yeah, you probably don't see them much in the winter when it's cold, although I've seen them out there walking when it's cold. And we've also, our DROs will be on bicycles as well. We'll have our downtown substation. It should be open in July, so that will increase a little bit of presence and engagement opportunities. And then we've been doing some things with our downtown community partnerships, business and tavern owners relative to bar closing, and how can we better handle some of that congestion and arrange for egress and ingress of people, ride shares, that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of things that are being discussed from a downtown perspective. And just for your information as well, next week on May 18th, we have a downtown download meeting here in Chambers. And that's specifically there for our DROs and our downtown partners, business owners, et cetera, to have those discussions about things downtown. And we've got some good collaborations going there. So you may be interested in sitting in, or actually that's broadcast as well. You could watch that. I think it's 10 a.m. on the 18th.
All right. Any?
I have one question on, are there any plans to have officers come into this committee and give us their opinion on the merits of what is being done here?
Can you just elaborate on what you're
Oh,
trying to
okay.
get to a little bit
Well,
more?
Yeah, so obviously I think, at least from my perspective, is to get out there and be boots on the grounds to be a face, if I may call it that, in the community, which will show that, of course, the police do care. But I would also think that they have ideas on what they would like for us to convey to the community as well, so that we can also hear from their perspective and then try to, articulate, what their opinions are and things of this sort.
Yeah, and I think probably the best opportunity to do that is at some of these events, because we have a lot of officers there that you could have open conversations with and dialogue and extract those insights. I think that would be a better environment to have those conversations than in a formal meeting and asking them, okay, what do you think we should do? Because that's really not the purpose of this meeting. But I would, to the extent you want to engage those officers at those events, even with our new academy recruits, I think it would be good for them to get to meet all of you as well as they're going through that program. And we'd certainly, I think that is a good idea.
All right. Thank you, Conrad. All right, is there any other business? Hearing none, this meeting of the Police Advisory and Oversight Board stands adjourned. Our next meeting is scheduled for Thursday, June 9th. Is that right, 9th? Yes, 2022 at 5 PM.